A woman in striped clothing leans against a crumbling wall, her eyes hollow with exhaustion. Above her head hangs a street sign that would get you arrested for saying, "Allowed in modern times, Grope Lane." The explicit name refers to what happens. Here women selling themselves to survive. But that's not the shocking part. The shocking part. The biggest customers weren't merchants or soldiers. They were the very men who preached purity from the pulpit every Sunday. And what you're about to discover about medieval intimacy will shatter everything you thought you knew about the past. This isn't the sanitized version they taught you in school. This is the raw, disturbing truth about desire, desperation, and hypocrisy in the Middle Ages. You hide your machine in the forest and make your way toward the village of Southwark, just outside London. The marketplace assaults your senses: rotting vegetables, raw sewage, unwashed bodies packed together in the oppressive heat. You navigate through the crowd, trying not to gag, when you notice two women sitting at a corner. Their makeup is thick, their striped hoods marking them clearly. Everyone knows what they are. No one needs to ask. These women weren't just outcasts. They were required by law to identify themselves. In York, striped caps were mandatory. In Florence, black and purple clothing. In Vienna, they had to wear bells on their garments like livestock. The authorities wanted them visible, controllable, segregated from decent society. But here's something: twisted upper-class young women started copying the style. The striped hoods became fashionable. The authorities were so disturbed by this that York actually added a clause to their regulations. No one except prostitutes may wear striped hoods. Imagine being so desperate to rebel against suffocating social norms that you dress like the most stigmatized women in society. You walk past them, following the crowd, toward what looks like a large public building. The smell improves slightly, steam and herbs replacing the stench of the street. It's a public bathhouse called a stew. You approach the entrance, but a guard immediately blocks your path. "No outsiders, registered locals only." You turn to leave, frustrated, when someone in the crowd suddenly shouts, "That's the one, the thief who stole my purse!" Every eye turns toward you. A rough hand grabs your wrist. Your heart pounds. The accuser has already disappeared into the crowd. You're about to be dragged away when a young woman steps forward. "This person is my guest from out of town," she says with commanding authority. "How dare you accuse them of theft?" The man releases you immediately and backs away. She turns to you with knowing eyes. "You're not from here, are you?" she says quietly. "Outsiders who wander around these places get robbed, beaten, or worse. Come with me." Her name is Eleanor, and somehow, impossibly, you become friends within minutes. She knows this district like the back of her hand. As you walk together, she explains the reality of the bathhouses. "They're not just for bathing," she tells you. "They're where deals are made, where pleasure is bought, where violence happens in the shadows." The city tries to regulate them, but they can barely control what goes on inside. Thieves love these places. They know outsiders come with coins and no one to protect them. Eleanor herself works near the bathhouses, though she doesn't say exactly what she does. You don't ask. Instead, you listen as she tells you about the other women, the wives, whose husbands died in war or were imprisoned, the mothers with starving children, the young women trying to save enough for a dowry to escape this life. "The church calls it sin," Eleanor says bitterly. "But what choice do we have? Washing clothes pays nothing. Begging gets you arrested. At least this way you eat." If they were caught, especially married women, the punishment was brutal. Public whipping, fines they couldn't afford, sometimes imprisonment. The church condemned them, but offered no alternative for survival. Then Eleanor leans in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Want to know who the best customers are? The priests." You stare at her, shocked. She laughs darkly. "Oh yes. The holy men who preach chastity all Sunday are here every other night. They think it's less sinful to pay for it than to relieve themselves. Can you believe that?" She's not exaggerating. Historical records from places like Dijon, France, show that clergy made up roughly 20% of brothel customers, despite being only 2% of the population. That's 10 times the rate of ordinary men. Before 1139, Eleanor continues, priests could marry, have families, live normal lives. Then the church banned it, said they needed to be pure, but they didn't stop wanting companionship or more. Most priests keep housekeepers. Everyone knows what that really means. The bishops fine them occasionally, but nothing changes. Church visitation records confirm this. Bishops would travel from parish to parish, discover priests living with women, issue fines, and move on. The same priests would appear in the records again years later, still with their housekeepers, still being fined. The really insane part, Eleanor says, her eyes blazing with anger, is what the church tells married people. Even husband and wife can't be intimate whenever they want. According to the priests, you can only do it to make babies. Enjoying it, that's sin. She counts on her fingers. No relations on Sundays, that's the Lord's Day. No Wednesday or Friday, those are fasting days. No Saturday, that's preparation for Sunday. No major holy days. No Lent. No Advent. Add it all up, and regular people get maybe 100 days a year when it's allowed, and only in one position. Man on top, woman below. Anything else is condemned. The rules were suffocatingly detailed. Couples were told not to fully undress, not to show excessive affection, not to do anything beyond the absolute minimum for procreation. Priests warned that breaking these rules would result in children born with leprosy, epilepsy, or deformities. A famous preacher, Bernardino of Siena, told congregations, "Husbands often say, 'Why can't I enjoy my own property and my own wife?' Because she is not yours. She belongs to God." Can you imagine? Eleanor's voice is thick with irony. These men lecture about purity in the morning, then visit us at night. They make rules no one can follow, then profit from the guilt. But while priests preached impossible standards, ordinary people lived in a completely different reality. Most couples don't even have privacy, Eleanor explains. Poor families live in one. Room parents, children, sometimes servants all together. Children see and hear everything. The bed is usually just straw with a cloth on top, maybe a grain sack for a pillow. Sometimes travelers or neighbors share the same room. Privacy was a luxury almost no one could afford. The intimate moments of marriage happened with children sleeping nearby, with neighbors on the other side of a thin wall, with the constant awareness that nothing was truly private. For servants and soldiers in castles, it was even worse. They slept in communal rooms, multiple people to a bed. If someone snuck a lover in, the best you could do was turn away and pretend not to notice. In this world, Eleanor says softly, love is the greatest luxury. Most people never really have it. Night falls. Eleanor's eyes light up with mischief. "There's a noble wedding at the castle tonight," she whispers. "I know a way in. We can disguise ourselves as servants they'll never notice with all the chaos. Want to see how the rich really live?" You're hesitant, but her excitement is contagious. She finds servant clothes for both of you rough. Linen shirts, aprons, head coverings. You blend in perfectly. The castle is ablaze with celebration. The great hall is being cleared as the ceremony concludes. A procession forms attendants carrying candles, leading the bride and groom toward the bedchamber. You and Eleanor slip into the crowd, just two more servants in the chaos. Eleanor moves through the castle like she owns it. No one questions her. No one even looks twice. The bride and groom appear in white nightclothes. A priest arrives to bless the marriage bed. Everyone laughs and cheers. Spiced wine is passed around. The attendants practically shove the couple onto the bed, then start throwing stockings at them. "It's tradition," Eleanor whispers. "Whoever they hit will marry next." Like throwing a bouquet, but more aggressive. The ritual is required by church law. For a marriage to be complete, witnesses must confirm that the couple entered the bedchamber together. Among the nobility, the wedding night isn't about love, it's about heirs, property, and power. Witnesses must see the curtains close around the marriage bed to verify. The union is real. "We should go," Eleanor murmurs. People envy this life, but the people living it are miserable. She's right. Noble marriages were business transactions. Love was irrelevant. Most aristocratic couples barely knew each other before the wedding. They were matched for political alliances, to merge estates, to secure inheritances. The result? Infidelity was rampant. Husbands keep mistresses, Eleanor explains as you slip out of the castle. Peasant girls, servants, anyone they want. The wives just have to endure it. But the women aren't always silent victims either. Some of them take lovers, knights, servants, anyone who offers kindness. Court records are full of these cases. In 14th century York, a noblewoman was prosecuted for an affair with her servant. Other records mention ladies carrying on secret relationships with guards, with visiting merchants, with poets and musicians. The famous book, The Art of Courtly Love, by Andreas Capellanus, even stated, explicitly, true love cannot exist within marriage. The romantic poetry of knights and ladies. That was about adultery, not marriage. It was about forbidden passion, about escaping the cold reality of arranged unions. Being a noble's wife, Eleanor says quietly, looks like paradise from the outside, but it's often just a gilded cage. As you walk through the narrow streets, you hear screaming from a nearby house. A crowd has gathered outside. Inside, a woman's agonized cries mix with desperate prayers. Someone's giving birth, Eleanor says. The midwife must be with her. In medieval times, childbirth was a death sentence for countless women. There were no hospitals, no doctors, no understanding of infection or sterilization. Women relied entirely on midwives, experienced women who used herbs, prayers, and folk wisdom passed down through generations. Midwives were both revered and feared. When a birth went well, they were heroes. When a mother or baby died, they were blamed, sometimes even accused of witchcraft. During the witch hunts, midwives were frequent targets because they held power over life and death. They do what they can, Eleanor says. Herbal teas to ease pain, warm compresses, special birthing chairs designed to use gravity. But when something goes wrong, there's nothing anyone can do. Both mother and child die. Records show that childbirth complications were one of the leading causes of death for women. Rich or poor, noble or peasant, every pregnancy was a roll of the dice with death. Finally, a baby's cry pierces the night. Today, at least, both survived. But not every pregnancy was wanted. The church forbids preventing children, Eleanor tells you, but people try anyway. They use garlic, parsley, animal bladders, anything they've heard might work. Most of it's useless. And if that fails, some women try to end the pregnancy. But if they're caught, the punishment is severe. Church courts show no mercy. Many babies were simply abandoned, left at church doors, monastery gates, or in the streets. Orphanages overflowed. Survival was never guaranteed. You continue walking. In a shadowy corner, a man sits slumped against a wall, his face covered in red sores, coughing weakly. He holds out a hand, begging for coins. Everyone gives him a wide berth. Don't get close, Eleanor warns. He has the sickness. Medieval Europe was ravaged by sexually transmitted diseases, though no one understood what caused them. Syphilis exploded across Europe in the late 1400s, called the French disease by the English, the Italian disease by the French, everyone blaming everyone else. But gonorrhea and other infections had been spreading for centuries before that. The treatments were nightmarish. Mercury, Eleanor says grimly. That's what doctors use. They rub it on the skin, make patients swallow it, even have them breathe mercury vapor in sealed rooms. They think it purges the disease through sweat and saliva. Mercury is a deadly poison. Patients who underwent mercury treatment often lost their teeth, suffered uncontrollable shaking, developed ulcers in their mouths, and eventually died in agony, sometimes from the treatment rather than the disease itself. Other cures were equally bizarre. Some doctors applied live chickens to infected areas, believing the birds would absorb the disease. When the chicken died, they claimed it proved the treatment worked. Others prescribed powdered wolf liver or toad venom. Nothing worked. People died slowly, painfully, their bodies destroyed by both illness and medicine. And the worst part, Eleanor adds bitterly, is the shame. If anyone knows you're sick, you're cast out. People think you deserve it for being immoral. But church records show priests and monks spread the disease, just as much as anyone else. The same men who condemn others are just as guilty. The hypocrisy was staggering. The church preached purity, but its own clergy fueled the very industry it condemned, spread the same diseases it called divine punishment, and suffered the same agonizing deaths. They claimed were God's judgment on sinners. Eleanor suddenly stops walking. "I need to go," she says quietly. Before you can respond, there's a shout behind you. "There! That's the outsider who violated the Lord's wedding. Chamber, spy, seize them!" Torches appear from every direction. Dozens of people surge toward you. Eleanor grabs your hand and runs. You sprint through twisting alleys, leap over broken carts, duck under hanging laundry. The mob's roar fills the night, getting closer. Your lungs burn. Your legs scream. But the forest is ahead, you can see it. You crash through the underbrush, branches tearing at your clothes. Finally, you reach the hidden time machine. "Get in!" you shout, grabbing Eleanor's wrist and trying to pull her up. But she's too slow. Hands grab her from behind, yanking her away. You have no choice. You slam the activation button. Eleanor's eyes meet yours one last time. She's not screaming or fighting. She just looks at you with a sad, knowing expression. A silent goodbye. The machine hums to life. Blinding light engulfs everything. And then she's gone. You're thrown through the time vortex alone. Your heart pounding, Eleanor's face burned into your memory. You escaped. She didn't. Medieval life wasn't the romantic fairy tale we imagine. Behind the castles and ceremonies was a world of brutal inequality, desperate survival, and crushing hypocrisy. The church preached impossible purity while its own clergy indulged freely. The rich married for power while the poor sold their bodies to eat. Women risked death with every pregnancy. Disease spread unchecked, treated, with poisons that killed as surely as the illness. And through it all, ordinary people found moments of love, connection, and humanity in the smallest spaces, a shared glance, a secret touch, a hand held in the darkness. Eleanor was one of millions whose names history never recorded. Women who lived, loved, struggled, and survived in a world designed to crush them. This is the Middle Ages they don't teach in school. The real story, with all its ugliness, tragedy, and surprising beauty. The question is, how much has really changed?